What's up, everybody? And quickly gotta give the Patreons a shout out, of course, because they help keep this engine running here at the podcast. So huge shout out to Tony, Starla, Sam, Luke, Jacob, and Tyler. Thank you guys so much for the continued support on Patreon. And if you want to be a Patreon subscriber and come help support the show, help this engine go, you can go to patreon.com/AITDpod. The link will be in the show notes of this episode. But on this episode, we are specifically talking about one thing really and one thing only. And that is really should drivers be able to choose their helpers? I'm not talking about just, the refer a friend kind of thing and getting a friend out in there, but being able to choose their helpers wisely, and if they can or really cannot even should or have a helper. I mean, it's because this really all stems to what happened a few years back in Connecticut when a UPS driver got stabbed to death by his helper. So this is what stemmed this one, and we want to talk about it and really, throw some options out there. So, guys, here is the intro song. Let's get this bad boy started. We got to this one address. I said, this one goes around back. He went around back, boom, drove off, left them right at the stop.
That was after getting hit by a car.
Wait, you got hit by a car?
I ended up drinking 24 Bud Lights in about 48 minutes. Drunken nomad stumbles out in the road and he hit me going 30 miles an hour.
What's up, everybody, and thank you for joining us on another episode of All in the Delivery. This is going to be a special one here to talk about. A little different than what we're normally used to. So, but first, let me introduce you guys. You know him, my co-host down in West by God, Virginia, Luke. How are you, buddy?
Fuck. I'm good tonight, brother. And this is as we've spoken in the past episodes, and if you follow us on Instagram, I'd made a little PSA with this that we were going to put in some filler episodes for when we have vacation time or to take some breaks in between of the of the episodes throughout that was a thing we had talked about when we were making the comeback to try to do that more than just with peak season. And this, while this may be quote unquote one of those filler episodes, it is by no means I don't want to call it filler episode because I feel like that's watered down. And we have a story it's pretty well known within our community, and to just say I'm going to keep everything completely I'm even going to be gender neutral for this anonymous for this motherfuckers. I'm going to be I will say it was a driver out of this center, and I had spoke to this driver's spouse, and we had and him as well with through them, and asked if they would want to come on a podcast episode to talk about. I mean, we were going to do as we do with all guests. We would be, keep it about their backstory and their background. It wouldn't have been really an episode like this. This would have been brought up, and it wasn't because of this subject that we'll be talking about tonight why they didn't want to come on. They're not, some people don't are more private and don't want to. I think Dave and I, especially with how many episodes, when you do 100 and some podcast episodes, it gets kind of to be second nature, and you kind of forget that there's people out there that may not want their voice heard, so to speak. But that being said, I was given permission to we were given permission to kind of tell this story, and we're going to talk about driver safety in general, but well, Dave's fully aware of how this all went down. So, like I said, this is going to be a different episode of focusing on one topic. And just to start this off, we'll get into. I'd say let's just get into how. So it was in 2020. Now this was it's 2025. So this past peak season, it would have been 4 years removed. And the driver, I mean, this is all public information. So the driver's name is Nathan Burke, and he was, I wasn't sure on his seniority or how long he had been driving, but he looked pretty young. And he had a helper that was his name was Elijah. If it was, Bert Stan or Bert, I forget what I said, but he was around 22, and I don't know if they ever actually. I never looked into if because they ended up catching the guy like a day later. I don't think there was ever even a motive explained, as far as I know. I don't think there was anything that. Actually, like, it wasn't a fucking argument. It
Right.
wasn't anything emotional. It was like he just did it. And so the spouse of the driver get a message from them. It was around peak season. I mean, had to be, because helpers were being used. And it was a question. And first because I just fucking did gender unneutraled myself. The spouse, they asked if we were allowed at my center to choose a helper, and if we wanted one or not. And I told them that I like on my route, a helper is not that effective because I have a lot of commercial stops. I have a lot of pickups. And so for me personally, I haven't had one really, I mean, since before COVID. Only for like a couple days here and there in like a 4 or 5 year period. Now at your center, like, are you allowed to say no if you don't like, or do they kind of?
I feel like, I mean, there was times where I said, like, I don't want this guy because I know he sucks.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
From performance issues and stuff.
Right. Like, I've said, like, I don't want him, kind of thing. And I never really heard like any type of like clapback like from that. You know what I mean? Like from management or anything. So, like, to answer, are we allowed to? I don't know. I don't know the exact answer to that. You know what I mean?
Just to like. And the performance is one thing, but what we were just saying of this story with this driver, Nathan Burke, out of the Connecticut Center, that this center that Nathan Burke worked at, the driver I don't know, the spouse didn't really go into like detail of what exactly, but the helper got mad at the driver for being, I don't remember what, if it wasn't just answering their phone or, I don't know exactly what it was, but I guess this helper even left some threatening text messages and shit, like being pissed off. And this driver asked the management team if they could not have somebody they didn't know. And not saying from performance-wise, which is a very clarified reason for most of us, luckily. But at this particular center, you would think only 4 years removed from a driver getting stabbed to death by a helper. In this center, they told him no. If they assigned him somebody. So, like, that blows my fucking mind because I've said to Dave, like, this wasn't in a building like in New York or Ohio or West Virginia. This wasn't even a neighboring fucking center or within the district. This was at that building.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of times we don't like to, well, most of the time we don't shit on UPS very often. Not that often. I mean, if you collected the fucking data up at this time from all the episodes we've done, we've probably got a good bit of it at this point. But it just, like, this shit is like another level because you just, like, you're talking about safety, like not having, like, what if something happens? Like, how the fuck do you even live with that? You know what I mean? And I know that's a rare occurrence, and that's, to my knowledge, I've never heard of anything like this ever happening before, but it has happened, and it happened in that fucking very building. And I'm like, do you have that short of a memory? There's a lot of things that get fucking, so it's just like, it's a narrative that has gotten thrown around for a lot of years, and we can say it. We've both been there long enough. You're a second generation driver, so I mean, I'm not going to speak for Vic, but he would probably not fully disagree, or he would 100% agree. But like, dude, it just shows that even at that level, and I have good relationships. I've said multiple times I have good relationships with my management. I get along with everybody great. I think our centers, overall our relationship to management is pretty good. And like, but just it, like, do you hear, like, but the term "we're just a number" literally rings out in my head because it's like, there's so many things like that just kind of, I feel like, all this stuff now, and I'm not talking about just this, and these are tragedies, man. I mean, these are fucking tragedies. We're talking, Nathan Burke, Frank Ordonez, all these drivers. I can't think of the guy in San Diego that the plane, he was working like on his week off because he was about to retire, and the plane fucking crashed. Like, I feel like this all always gets brushed to the side. And to me, that's always going to piss me off because I don't know what, like, we've talked about with Frank Ordonez, for years now. If they would have, like, we could do 1,000 fucking podcast episodes and not reach the number of drivers that they could do in literally a couple clicks of some fucking computer devices, and be like, I don't know. There's just, like, it bothers me that there's not, that's when the number thing comes to my mind. And I can shout this guy out because I don't know his government name or if it's a he or a she. I'm pretty sure it's a dude. But Union Box Smashers on Instagram, TikTok, I don't know if they got a Facebook page, but if you're a driver and you like memes, you would enjoy what they have. But they had posted a story that they tagged. I know they tagged me in it. And I think they tagged the podcast in it as well. Of like, it was like one of those fill in like questions of like ask a question, or not really ask a question, but like it was asking a response to what's the worst thing you've seen in your building. And dude, the fucking answers that I was, and I'm not going to go into any of that because one, I'm hoping to get them on. If you listen, we're coming for you because we want you to come on to the podcast because we can hide your identity. We can voice, it's like what we were going to do for Todd, and then
Coming for you.
And then Todd, yeah, hey, I'm going to get you. We said with Todd, we would, we didn't show Todd's face on the Christmas Live, so yeah, we've got some experience of hiding identities. I was just not going to say his name, but he put in, that's what it was, he put in his full name on that. That's what it was. We hid his identity, but he didn't hide his name, unfortunately. I love you, Todd, if you're listening to this one, and that's the thing too, like,
that was his second alias name. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there you go. But that's what I mean. Like, and I know, like, and speaking of him, it's like another thing, like, because he's a good dude, and I know he is personally, and I know it's not like all fucking management, because I know I'm a big dude, and a lot of people might. I mean, I can still fight pretty good. I feel like I'm still pretty strong, and but like, if I would say I didn't feel fucking comfortable for my safety with a helper, I mean,
yeah,
dude, I feel like, dude, they would acknowledge that. But there's places out there that obviously don't. And the place that fucking should, no matter what kind of relationship you have with your fucking drivers, like, dude, you could fucking argue every day. But like, fuck, dude, that would be something that just at the corporate level, that is my biggest fucking pet peeve. That it doesn't get, like, I feel like they don't get the recognition. And I'm not saying it's even got to be like something where all the media outlets of every year, Fox and CNN and, all the fucking outlets out there, just say shit. I mean, just within UPS, just within the drivers, like, just to put like a thing of a day of remembrance of, I mean, and this is not just talking about, because we unfortunately, I can say with Union Box Smashers things, to not give too much of a spoiler, but it's also, I mean, I've seen it now. We've had this network of the cardboard community for a time now, and you don't really hear. I can say this though. I want to shout out to Patreon member Starla. She actually asked me if we'd heard something at our PCM. I mean, I don't even really want to say this because this is probably still an ongoing thing, but this is already a sad enough episode. But she had asked me if we heard anything about a PCM. I guess there was a driver, and all I know is that it was a driver in Ohio that it was obviously an accident, but he ran over a 4-year-old boy, and but that got brought up at her building, but it wasn't. See, I don't want to speak for her, but the way she'd probably say it, like, it was, I think she said it. I don't want to 100% speak for you, Starla, but they were bringing it up as a safety thing. They weren't bringing it up. You know what I mean? I feel like it didn't get brought up. If you're going to bring something like that up, I feel like it. I mean, if you want to bring up safety is one thing, but dude, like that to me, I feel like is something you might not like. I don't like. You won't bring up. You'll stay quiet about Nathan Burke or Frank Ordonez, but you'll bring up a story like that for safety purposes in a sense, like if it happened in Ohio and Starla's in Texas. Like, it's weird how it's just like a,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it just
I know what you
doesn't,
mean.
it doesn't sit right. I understand, and that's a terrible fucking thing, but I'm like, it doesn't, like, it's picking and choosing, and I don't know, man. It just, like, that didn't sit right, because I thought, too, I was like, I'm a hell of a lot closer to Ohio. I mean, that's the bordering state where I'm at, you know? So I'm like, if that would have came, and shit, you're closer to fucking Ohio than she is. But I think, I don't know. With overall driver safety, with social media and stuff, seeing things, and I'm not even talking about with tragedies, with senseless violence, you know, just even like stuff we've seen of drivers that passed out, like that one guy that was on the highway and you know, was told to come in and passed out on the, you know, that could have changed. It just like overall, like company wide, there should be, I don't know, I guess maybe it's because we have so much information. It's crazy to me because it makes me wonder what all happened before we were able to, like, you know what I mean? Because I don't know, man. Sometimes I'm always going to appreciate what, you know, I'd say when we say the cardboard community, I always give credit when credit's due. You know, I'll say Bobby, of the cardboard community that Bobby started and that Bobby built, and becoming a part of that, and starting the podcast and having an extension, you know, to that, and just all the as awesome as it is, and as awesome as it's been, in the connections and everything will always outweigh anything bad. But I can say, like, there's some shit that you just hear and you're like, man,
Yeah.
like, it's just like, dude, like, and you're like, we all work for the same place, and it's like, that's how that shit was handled. I don't know. It just is. I don't know the answer to it. I don't know if it's like, I feel like if there would be anything to take away from this episode, because obviously this was a lot more serious episode than what we've and what, like, kind of what the ideas of what we had behind of doing these when we pre-record the filler episode, so to speak, is to have things we can talk. Like, it was something that I feel like deserved. It's really because it's the first one that we did. I feel like it was something that deserved our full attention anyway, and to try to see how this all would, you know, how it all would work and go down. But it's also, it's tough, man. It's you know, you just as simple as answering a question and then kind of going down the rabbit hole of getting the response of, you know, of just, like I said, getting the question of, are we allowed? Like, I feel like that ought to, I mean, should that be even, like, I don't know what kind of drivers, like, with driver safety stuff, like, I don't know the answer. And that's what I say with, like, tragedies and stuff. I don't know. Like, I don't have a solution. I just think that when it's I feel like, yeah, if it's a tragic situation, something that does not, if it's something from violence, I just feel like they should have some type of remembrance for those drivers. Just make it say it at a PCM. Say we remember them. Something. Like, I don't have an answer. Like with Frank Ordonez, Nathan Burke, I don't have an answer of how to prevent. I mean, I can't. I don't know what was in his head that day with Nathan. He probably. I mean, we've all had helpers. He'd worked. I know he wasn't a brand new driver, so we've all had multiple helpers. We've all had helpers that are like that. I feel like are. We've all had helpers we thought were strange. I mean, let's be honest. We fucking have. So, like, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know if he was. I don't think I can't speak for him. I don't know. I can't get in his head. I don't know what it was that day, but it's like, he probably didn't think anything. I've had some helpers ask me some weird random shit, and I'm like, okay, that's fucking weird.
Yep.
I mean, that's like, I had that fucking kid ask me about, he didn't speak forever. And then I deliver to the house with no windows. And he said, oh, this is like the house in Human Centipede. And I'm talking day three. I'm like, I look over at him. I'm like, what? What's that? I have no fucking idea what Human Centipede is. And then all of a sudden, Mr. fucking, won't look up, fucking looking at the ground, not making a peep, all of a sudden becomes Chatty Cathy and goes full on. I guess they made a fucking trilogy of this shit. And for anybody that's curious, to put it at least on a, because I've tried to make a joke for a lighter note, but this is also very fucking weird, that they sew their mouths onto somebody's asshole and they look in a centipede. And I had a fucking helper for 3 days that hadn't said shit, and you have that, and I'm like, no, I never felt physically, but it's just like, dude, yeah, I don't feel like if you have a feeling, if it's somebody you just don't know, and we wouldn't think about that. This driver, I almost did it again. I did it twice. I mean, if you catch that, I'm not giving names. Like, obviously the driver has out of that building, they could have that concern is what I'm fucking saying, Yeah. Like, they would think a lot differently than we would. Because while we know that story, that shit obviously hits home a lot fucking harder when it's your area, literally your building. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean, though. It's just like, I can't say even background checks or anything. I don't know, like, a way to try, maybe there should be a think tank, man. We spend $100 million on a fucking GPS system that's absolutely trash. Maybe we can spend $50 million on a fucking think tank, try to figure out driver safety in an effective way. Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have a solution.
Like, especially that, though, because, like, if a driver, what's the difference? Because, like, it's a driver, let's say a driver feels unsafe because of a dog that they don't know. Like, are we going to EC the package? In some buildings, yes. We'll probably EC it. Or in other buildings, they'd be like, just bag it and drop it outside the door, or like of the car, just leave it in the middle of the driveway. Because, they'd rather get a phone call from a customer complaining that their package got left in the middle of the driveway than a dog bite incident on record.
Right.
So, like, what's the difference between that and saying to your supervisors, like, I'm uncomfortable with this guy being in the car with me all day long. Like, I'm uncomfortable. Like, what the fuck's the difference? There shouldn't be.
Yeah, there shouldn't be.
Like, at that moment,
you're willing to do the work. You know
It's
what
like
I
at
mean?
that moment, though, management supervisors should stand up for that driver, just like they would have for the package left because the driver felt unsafe by that dog.
Right.
It's the same fucking thing.
The only thing, and this is me being in the head of the numbers people, I'm not trying to say this is a good thing because it's not, but like, this isn't justifiable, but the only thing I can think of that they're thinking is like, no, you got to have this work. You're not going to get done. You need a helper. You know what I mean? Or some shit like that.
Something stupid.
Some fucking stupid. Just number shit that's fucking meaningless. But yeah, that's a fucking good point because that would be the same. That's the exact same fucking thing, dude. And obviously, this can be way worse because if it's a fucking person, dude, you know, dogs, while they're dangerous, and I know there was a male lady in Florida that fucking got jumped by I don't know what kind. There was like 5 fucking dogs, and she died from the injuries from that. So I'm not saying it can't be fatal because it certainly can be in certain situations. But with a human, you know, that's a conniving, you don't know what the fuck's going on. That's totally different. Even with 5, if you have 5 dogs, I mean, I'm not trying to say anything different of what this person could have done to avoid, but I'm just saying if you have 5 dogs that are about to attack you, you're going to know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You obviously are like, you fucking see that coming. I mean, if you get a weird vibe of any kind, then yeah, I don't see how they can't fucking like. Part of me wonders if I mean, I don't even know. Would that even be a grievance? God, it feels more like a fucking lawsuit. But I just I don't know, man. It is going to be a $1 million question to ask, though. When we do have a question of the week up again, when we come back, maybe we can we'll get some thoughts from the listeners of because I've really tried to think of a lot of. I mean, I feel like this one is a lot more easy to make preventable, if that makes sense. Like with Frank Ordonez, you know, that was we spoke about that on a few episodes back and previously. That was, you know, is unfortunate to say. It was the wrong place, wrong time, and a few minutes, like you had said, Dave, be it at a stoplight, stoplight hit red instead of green or something little, you know, like that. I don't know how. That's just like literally wrong place, wrong time, no matter how you say it. But this stuff, at least, like with the helpers and shit, I feel like at least somewhat that they could control that. And that's just, if you have, I guess what I'm saying, if we're saying to fucking to put a meaning to this episode for all the drivers out there, if you fucking don't want to have a helper, I feel like, I mean, I'm not saying for you to use that as an excuse, but if you legitimately don't fucking feel safe, and they don't, I mean, I can't see how they can say no, even though it happened in that very fucking building, which is why we had to bring it up. But that was really, I don't have a whole lot more on my end to really, because there's not a whole, you know, like I said, I don't have a solution off head. Maybe the listeners might when we put one out. If you have any comments with this, whenever this does get released, it will be released in the, well, as we record this, it'll be released in the upcoming weeks, but you'll hear it soon.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so, you know, should a driver be able to reject a specific helper? That is the question. And, you know, I think when this comes out, Luke and I will hear a lot of different stories I do think like we'll get some messages here.
I do too.
About this and what has happened before. So, we'll share some of them for sure on here and like kind of get a full input of the cardboard community, if you will.
I'm curious because I don't know. I don't think we've ever discussed it, like even as a like I just we've had to create all the helper stories. I feel like we had were always directed in the comedic way, but I'm sure there's been people have some weird fucking. I mean, my human centipede kid was. He was about as threatening as a box of kittens. He was just kind of weird, but I just still when he started doing that though, I fucking still was like, what the fuck, like so. I mean, I was saying it like that, like kind of chuckling, but I was like, this is fucking odd. Like, am I going to wake up with a fucking, or like, am I going to turn around and have a yeah? So I can. That's about. Although I didn't get to that point, I definitely still thought it was very fucking weird.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, like Luke said, let us know. Let us know what you guys have heard. Let us know what you guys have seen at your centers for sure. So, but I think that'll wrap this one up, guys. Everybody, be good out there. All right, be kind to one another, and be safe. And we'll catch you all next week.
Later, everybody.